Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank the ranking member, thank the witnesses for appearing, and would compliment the chair for hosting this hearing, and acknowledge that the chair is probably the hardest working, if maybe I'll just say one of the hardest working chairs in Congress. She sits through these hearings, if you've noticed, and I think that sends a very strong message about the concern that she has. So I compliment you, Madam Chair. Dear friends, I believe that a picture is worth 1,000 words, and as a result, I have a couple of pictures that I'd like to show you. Ambassador Martinez, it's my belief that you have indicated that we should quiz the captains of industry about their circumstances with reference to having persons who are minorities, women.
Well, as a diplomat, I would say invite them for a conversation.
All right.
Yes,
well,
sir.
Let me just share this with you. We did that. And I'd like to just share some of the conversation with you. But I did make a mistake when I had this opportunity. I mentioned women, and I mentioned persons who are of color, but I did not mention LGBTQ. I think we have to be inclusive in all ways. I don't think we can leave out any segment of society. So with that as my confession, I posed a question to captains of industry, the heads of major lending institutions. Their names need not be made available at this time, but I'd like to show you this picture, because in this picture, with these captains of industry, you'll note that they are all seated and looking quite like the captains of industry they are. They all happen to be white men, all white men. I found that to be something worthy of noting at the hearing, and I did. But I posed a question to these captains of industry, all of whom are white men. You ought not be afraid to state facts. There are some people who don't want to hear me say white men, but you have to state facts. These were all white men, captains of industry. The question that I posed was one that dealt with their successors. If you believe that your successor is likely to be a woman or a person of color, raise your hand. This is the response. Raise your hand. Not one hand. Captains of industry, brilliant people all. Not one hand. Well, understanding that maybe that was just a circumstance for the immediate future, I then posed the question to all of these white men. Remember, we cannot avoid facts. I then said, in the next 10 years or decade, are you likely to have a woman or a person of color to succeed in your position? 1, 2, 3, 4 hands, 5 hands. But notice, 2 of the captains of industry are indicating that in the next 10 years, they're not likely to have a woman or a person of color. That's why I'm so grateful that the chairwoman is having this hearing. We have to be concerned about not only the lending that takes place in these institutions, but the leadership that takes place in these institutions. There is no empirical evidence to support the fact that doesn't exist, a fact that women, members of the LGBTQ community, and people of color, no empirical evidence supporting a notion that they cannot lead these organizations. There is none. We're beyond that old premise that we can't find any that are qualified. They are capable, competent, and qualified persons, and we have to change the circumstance. Thank you, Madam Chair. I yield back.